Don't dream of staying in this house anymore." Those were the last words my daughter Emma screamed at me as I walked out of my own birthday party. 30 guests had just witnessed her public takedown of her selfish father, all because I wouldn't co-sign a $1.3 million loan. The room full of neighbors and family members stared at me like I was the villain in this story. After everything I'd given up for those girls, after raising them alone when their mother ran off with her boyfriend, after working myself to the bone for 25 years to provide for them, this was my reward. But as I descended to my basement bedroom that night, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. My name is Henry Crawford, and they were about to discover just how big a mistake they'd made. But before I tell you exactly what happened in those 48 hours, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let me take you back to where this all started. I was 32 years old when I found the text messages on my wife's phone. Sarah was cheating with her yoga instructor. The twins, Emma and Olivia, were only 7 years old. Small faces with wide eyes, asking why mommy was crying all the time. The divorce happened fast. Sarah didn't even fight for custody. She packed her designer luggage, kissed the girls goodbye like she was going on vacation, and moved in with her new boyfriend that same week. 20 years of marriage ended with a forwarding address. I remember that first night alone. The girls were finally asleep after hours of questions I couldn't answer. I sat in our living room surrounded by family photos that now felt like evidence of a lie. The house was too quiet, too empty, too broken. That's when I made the promise that would define the next 25 years of my life. I would never let my daughters want for anything. I would be both mother and father. I would sacrifice whatever it took to make sure they never felt abandoned again. I meant every word of that promise. Every single word. For a quarter century, I kept it religiously. I gave them everything I had and everything I was. But maybe that was my first mistake. Maybe love without boundaries isn't love at all. Maybe it's just enabling disguised as devotion. I was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Those early years nearly killed me. 2 jobs, sometimes 3. Days at Peterson Motors managing their parts department. Evenings doing bookkeeping for small businesses. Weekends fixing cars in my garage for extra cash. Some nights I got 3 hours of sleep. Some nights I didn't sleep at all, but I made it work. Piano lessons for Emma. She had talent, real talent. Ballet classes for Olivia. She moved like a dancer from the time she could walk. Summer camps when other kids went away. College funds that grew slowly but steadily. Everything Sarah and I had planned. Before she decided our family wasn't enough for her, I never let the girls see me struggle. Never let them know I was eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner so they could have proper meals. When Emma wanted the expensive dance shoes, I found the money. When Olivia needed a laptop for school, I made it happen somehow. I was the dad who never missed a recital. Never missed a parent-teacher conference. Never missed anything that mattered to them. I taught them to drive in my beat-up pickup truck. Helped with algebra homework until midnight. Stayed up all night when they were sick, checking their temperatures and reading them stories. The sacrifice was worth it. Watching them grow into beautiful, intelligent, confident women, seeing them graduate college with honors, walking them down the aisle at their weddings, wishing their mother could see how amazing they'd become. I was proud of what we'd built together. Father and daughters against the world. What I didn't realize was how that dynamic would poison everything that came after. In 1998, when the girls were 15, I made the biggest gamble of my life. I used our small savings and took a second mortgage to buy Peterson's old auto repair shop. 3 bays, outdated equipment, and a reputation for shoddy work. Everyone thought I was crazy. Crawford Auto Repair started with just me working 16-hour days. The girls thought their dad was just fixing cars for extra money. They never knew I was building something that would change our lives completely. They never knew because I kept living like we were still paycheck to paycheck. By 2000, we had enough business to hire 2 mechanics. By 2005, we'd expanded to 3 locations across the county. By 2010, We had the contract for the entire city fleet: police cars, fire trucks, municipal vehicles. The revenue was growing faster than I'd ever imagined possible. But I never changed our lifestyle. Same house, same truck, same grocery store coupons. I wanted the girls to understand the value of money, the importance of hard work. I wanted them to be humble despite our growing success. Maybe that was another mistake. Maybe they needed to see what I was building. Maybe they needed to understand that their father wasn't just a blue-collar mechanic anymore. I started investing the profits carefully. Real estate during the 2008 crash when everyone else was panicking. Stocks when the market bottomed out. I took night classes in finance and investment strategy, learning from professors who had no idea the quiet mechanic in the back row was sitting on a growing fortune. The girls never questioned why their old dad suddenly understood market trends and dividend yields. I had a plan for that money. Every dollar I saved, every investment that paid off, every smart financial decision, it was all for them. I was building their future, securing their children's education, creating generational wealth they'd never have to worry about. I planned to surprise them in my will. Can you imagine their faces when they discovered that their blue-collar father had quietly accumulated millions? The letter I'd written explaining every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every missed opportunity for my own happiness, all for their security. By 2015, Crawford Auto Repair was generating over $800,000 annually. My investment portfolio had grown to $1.2 million. The 3 properties I'd bought during the recession had tripled in value. I was secretly worth over $2 million, living like a man making $50,000 a year. But as the girls entered their 30s and moved back home with their new husbands, everything started to change. The dynamics shifted. The respect eroded. The entitlement began. Emma married Tyler, a marketing manager with expensive taste and student loan debt. Olivia married Jonathan, a real estate agent who talked constantly about investment opportunities and leveraging assets. Both couples moved back into what they called the family home right after their weddings. I was happy to have them close. The house felt alive again with their voices, their plans, their dreams, but gradually I started feeling like a guest in my own home, then a tenant, then a burden. They started making decisions without consulting me, planning renovations like I wasn't there, treating my opinions like outdated advice from someone who didn't understand the modern world. But I understood more than they could possibly imagine. Here's something important you need to understand about that house. When I bought it in 2006 for $485,000, I made a deliberate choice. I put only my name on the deed, not the girls' names, just Henry Crawford. They were 18 and heading to college. It made financial sense. Better interest rates, simpler estate planning, cleaner legal structure. The house was mine, legally and completely. I told them, this is our family home, and they heard ownership. But legal ownership and family ownership are very different things. The mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, repairs, everything came out of my accounts, under my name, by my decision. Over the years, as they talked about their house and their childhood home, I never corrected them. Why would I? I planned to leave it to them eventually. Let them feel like it belonged to all of us. Let them feel secure and rooted. What they didn't know was that Crawford Auto Repair was growing faster than they could imagine. We'd added a 4th location by then. The city contract had expanded to include the county sheriff's department. Revenue was approaching $1 million annually, but I kept driving my 2003 Ford pickup and shopping at discount stores. The girls thought their dad was just getting by. When they saw me studying financial websites at night, they assumed I was worried about having enough money for retirement. When I met with my accountant, an attorney, they thought I was just an old man trying to figure out his modest estate. They had no idea their father was building an empire disguised as financial survival. Business was exploding, but I lived like we were still struggling. Coffee and toast for breakfast, 12-hour shifts at the shop, grocery shopping on Sundays with a careful list and manufacturer coupons, To anyone watching, I was just another hard-working mechanic getting close to retirement age. But Crawford Auto Repair had become something special. We weren't just fixing cars anymore. We were the exclusive service provider for every government vehicle in a tri-county area. Police departments, fire stations, municipal services. Our reputation for honest work and fair prices had created a monopoly without us even trying. The contracts were worth $1.2 million annually by 2010. My personal investment portfolio had grown to $1.8 million. I owned 4 rental properties bought during the recession that were now worth triple what I'd paid. My diversified stock holdings were generating 6-figure returns every year. But I still clipped coupons, still wore the same work boots for 3 years, still drove a truck with 180,000 miles on it. The girls had started talking about me like I was a financial burden they'd eventually need to support. "Poor Dad," I heard Olivia whisper to Emma one evening. "He's worked so hard his whole life and has so little to show for it. We'll need to take care of him when he gets older." Take care of me. The irony was almost funny. The man they thought needed financial assistance was sitting on a small fortune they couldn't imagine. The poor mechanic they planned to support was wealthier than both their husbands combined. That misconception was about to become very expensive for them. In 2019, National Auto Group approached me with an offer I'd been expecting for months. They wanted to buy all 4 Crawford locations for $1.8 million cash. Complete buyout, immediate transfer, retirement package included. I accepted without hesitation. 21 years of building something from nothing, and now I could cash out at the perfect moment. The girls knew about the sale, but I was careful about the details. I told them I'd broken even after paying off equipment loans, settling contracts, and handling transition costs. They believed me because they'd watched me live modestly for decades. "At least you can retire now, Dad," Emma said when I told them. "Maybe find a nice little apartment somewhere quiet." An apartment. They were already planning my exit strategy. That afternoon, I drove to Wells Fargo downtown and opened a new account. Business checking, Henry Crawford only, no joint holders, no beneficiaries. I deposited the entire $1.8 million from the sale, plus transferred another $800,000 from my investment accounts. $2.6 million in an account they knew nothing about. Money they'd never seen, never expected, never even imagined existed. My attorney suggested updating my will at the same time. Just routine maintenance, he called it. We should add a moral character clause while we're making changes. What's that mean? Protection against beneficiaries who might disrespect your memory after you're gone. Public humiliation, family embarrassment, things like that. It's just a safeguard. I signed the revision thinking I'd never need it. These were my daughters. They loved me. They'd never humiliate me publicly. How wrong I was about to be. Life at home started changing after the business sale. Emma and Tyler took over the master bedroom without asking permission. Olivia and Jonathan transformed the living room into their business headquarters for Jonathan's real estate ventures. I was moved to the basement bedroom like a boarder. The bills kept coming in my name, of course. Property, taxes, utilities, insurance, groceries, everything. But somehow I'd become responsible for paying while they made the household decisions. When I tried to participate in conversations about house improvements or family plans, they'd exchange looks like I was interrupting adult conversations. "Dad, we're thinking about renovating the kitchen," Emma announced one morning over coffee. "Obviously, you'll handle the costs since it's your house legally, but we'll manage the project." Obviously. The man who pays makes no decisions. The people who live rent-free control everything. When Tyler lost his marketing job, nobody suggested adjusting our financial arrangement. When Jonathan's real estate deals fell through month after month, the mortgage payments still came out of my account. I was funding 4 adults' lifestyles while being treated like an unwelcome guest. The comments started small. Eye rolls when I shared stories from my work years. Interruptions when I offered opinions about current events. "That's such a boomer mindset, Dad," became a regular response to anything I said. But then it escalated into something darker, something that crossed lines I didn't even know existed. They started planning my future like I was already incompetent, talking about Dad's needs and what's best for someone his age like I wasn't sitting right there. That's when I started recording our conversations. The breaking point came when they demanded I co-sign their loan application. Tyler and Jonathan had found their investment opportunity, 2 side-by-side vacation homes in Florida for $1.3 million total. Prime real estate market, they claimed. Guaranteed appreciation, rental income potential, all the buzzwords of people who'd never actually invested in anything. We need a co-signer with substantial assets, Tyler explained, spreading loan papers across my kitchen table. You're perfect because you own this house outright. They wanted to use my home as collateral for their speculation. The house I'd bought with my money, maintained with my labor, and planned to leave them anyway. What if the market crashes? I asked. What if you can't make the payments? Emma looked at me like I was asking stupid questions. Dad, real estate always goes up. This isn't 1982. You don't understand modern investment strategies. Modern investment strategies. From a marketing manager who'd just lost his job and a real estate agent who hadn't closed a deal in 6 months. I need time to think about it, I said. Think about what? Jonathan's voice had an edge now. We're family. Family helps family succeed, unless money is more important to you than our futures. The guilt trip was perfectly executed. Classic manipulation disguised as family loyalty. You owe us this, Dad, Olivia said quietly. After everything we went through growing up, working all the time, never being present emotionally, the least you can do is help us build something now. Put us through? I'd sacrificed everything for them, and this was how they remembered it? I refused to sign the loan papers, not because I didn't want to help them, but because risking my house, their eventual inheritance, on their untested business venture seemed insane. That's when the Cold War began. Emma and Tyler stopped talking to me except when absolutely necessary. Olivia and Jonathan held their conversations in other rooms, speaking in whispers that stopped abruptly when I appeared. Family dinners became silent affairs where I felt like an intruder at my own table. Fine, Dad, Emma said after 3 weeks of frozen politeness. If you won't help family, don't expect family treatment. Family treatment? What did that mean exactly? I found out quickly. No more casual conversations about their day. No more including me in weekend plans. No more asking my opinion about anything. I became invisible in my own house, a ghost who happened to pay all the bills. Dad's being selfish about the loan, I heard Tyler tell someone on his phone. Typical old man hoarding his assets while his daughters struggled to build their futures. Hoarding assets. The man sitting on $2.6 million in secret accounts, planning to leave them everything, was accused of hoarding assets. The irony might have been funny if it wasn't so painful. Then Olivia made an announcement that surprised me. We're throwing you a birthday party, Dad. 65 is a big milestone. We want to celebrate properly. After weeks of treating me like a stranger, they suddenly wanted to honor me publicly? I should have trusted my instincts. I should have said no, but I was still hoping we could repair things. The party planning consumed the house for 2 weeks. Emma and Olivia ordered catering from an expensive restaurant. They rented tables and chairs. They bought decorations that cost more than I'd spent on groceries in a month. It's going to be perfect, Dad, Emma said, showing me the guest list. Everyone will be there. All the neighbors, extended family, your old employees from Crawford Auto. We want everyone to see how much we love and respect you. Love and respect. After weeks of silence and whispered conversations, the guest list kept growing. 33 people confirmed, neighbors from the entire street, cousins I hadn't seen in years, former employees who remembered me as a fair boss and good man. Tyler seemed especially enthusiastic about the party planning. This needs to look legitimate, I heard him tell Emma one evening. Everyone has to be there. It has to be convincing. Legitimate? Convincing? What needed to be convincing about a birthday celebration? I tried to push down the growing unease. These were my daughters. Despite our recent problems, they loved me. They wouldn't hurt me publicly. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't identify what. I sat at my basement desk, replaying recent conversations, trying to understand the sudden enthusiasm for celebrating me. Then I remembered Tyler's phone call about the loan papers. If we can't get the co-signature one way, we'll find another way. I slipped my small digital recorder into my jacket pocket, just in case. Just in case turned out to be the smartest decision I'd made in years. The party started normally enough. 33 guests filled our backyard and living room. Neighbors brought covered dishes. Family members shared old stories. Former employees talked about the early days at Crawford Auto Repair. People asked about retirement. I deflected questions about money, saying I was getting by fine on my savings. Everyone seemed to accept that their former mechanic boss was living modestly in whatever he'd managed to save. I started to relax. Maybe this was genuine. Maybe the girls really did want to honor me publicly after our recent difficulties. Then Emma stood up and called for attention. "Everyone, if I could have a moment," she said, tapping her wine glass, "I'd like to say a few words about my father." The conversation gradually died down. 33 faces turned toward Emma, then me. I felt my chest tighten, but I smiled and nodded encouragingly. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Dad's 65th birthday," Emma began. Her voice carried clearly across the crowded room. "It's important that you're all here to witness this." Witness? That was an odd word choice for a birthday speech. "Most of you know my dad as a hardworking man who built a successful business," she continued. "What you might not know is how that success has changed him." Changed me? What was she talking about? Emma's smile looked practiced now. Artificial, like she was performing rather than speaking from the heart. "Recently, my sister and I asked Dad for help with an important investment opportunity." My stomach dropped. This wasn't a birthday celebration. This was something else entirely. "We found properties in Florida," Emma continued, her voice carrying clearly across the silent room. "2 vacation homes that would secure our family's financial futures. Nothing crazy or speculative, just solid real estate investment." 33 people listened intently. I could feel their eyes shifting between Emma and me, trying to understand where this speech was heading. "We asked our father, the man who raised us to believe family comes first, to co-sign the loan. Not give us money, just help us qualify for financing with his good credit and property assets." And she made it sound so reasonable, so simple. Just a father helping his daughter succeed. "Do you know what he said?" Emma's voice took on a tone I'd never heard before. Cold, calculating. "He said no, his own daughters, asking for help to build their futures, and he refused." Murmurs started around the room, confused whispers, neighbors exchanging glances. "My father taught us that blood means nothing when money's involved," Emma announced to the crowd. "That family obligations end when financial requests begin." That's not what I'd taught them. That's not what I'd said. But 33 people were hearing her version, not mine. "So I want everyone here to see exactly who Henry Crawford has become," she continued. "A man who refuses to help his own daughters buy homes. A man who puts money above family." The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter and whispered comments. I felt my face burning with humiliation, my hands shaking with shock. This was planned. This was orchestrated. This was deliberate character assassination. The laughter died down, but the damage was spreading. I could see it in people's faces. Disappointment, judgment, confusion. Neighbors I'd known for 15 years were looking at me like I was a stranger. Former employees who'd respected me were shaking their heads. "Emma?" I managed to stand up, my voice weak. "That's not what happened. That's not—" "Please sit down, Dad," she interrupted loudly. "Let me finish." The condescension in her voice was unmistakable. She was enjoying this public humiliation, savoring every moment of my embarrassment. "For 25 years we thought our father was different," she continued, her performance growing more confident. "A man who put family first, who cared about his daughter's happiness and success." Olivia stepped forward to join her sister. They'd clearly rehearsed this moment. "But when we needed him most," Emma's voice rose dramatically, "when we asked for help building our futures, he showed his true colors. Money matters more than family to Henry Crawford." "That's not true," I said, but my voice cracked. I sounded guilty even to myself. Then prove it, Dad. Emma's challenge rang across the silent room. The loan papers are right here. Sign them now, in front of everyone. Show your daughters and your community that family actually means something to you. Tyler stepped forward, holding a manila folder. They'd brought the documents to my birthday party. This was never about celebration. This was about public coercion. I won't be manipulated, I said, finding my voice. This is wrong, Emma. This is... Then don't dream of staying in this house anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow. Don't dream of staying in this house anymore. My own daughter evicting me from the home I'd bought and paid for, in front of 33 witnesses. The room was completely silent now. Even the uncomfortable chuckling had stopped. This had gone too far, and everyone knew it. But nobody spoke up for me. Nobody defended the man who'd worked his whole life to provide for his family. They just stared, waiting to see what would happen next. I looked around at faces I'd known for years. Mrs. Patterson from next door, who I'd helped with her groceries every winter. Tom Rodriguez from Crawford Auto, who I'd promoted from mechanic to manager. Cousin Martha, who I'd loaned money to when her husband was sick. All of them watching my public humiliation in silence. Fine, I said quietly, walking toward the front door. I understand completely. Good riddance, Emma called after me. We'll be better off without a selfish father who cares more about money than family. I made it to the front door before stopping, turned around to face the room full of people who'd just witnessed my character assassination. Happy birthday to me, I said. Then I walked out of my own party. But here's what none of them knew. Here's what Emma and Olivia and Tyler and Jonathan had no idea about. The man they'd just publicly humiliated wasn't the struggling retiree they thought he was. And the house they'd just kicked me out of, they didn't own it. I did. Completely. Legally. Irrevocably. I made it to my basement bedroom and closed the door behind me. Above my head, I could hear the party continuing. Voices, laughter, conversations, my family and friends processing what they'd just witnessed. My hands were still shaking as I pulled the digital recorder from my jacket pocket. I'd captured everything. Every word of Emma's calculated speech, every cruel comment, every moment of my public humiliation, including the phrase that would change everything. Don't dream of staying in this house anymore. My own daughter, ordering me out of the house I owned, in front of 33 witnesses, recorded in perfect digital clarity. I sat on my narrow basement bed and played back the recording. Emma's voice was crystal clear through the small speaker. My father taught us that blood means nothing when money's involved. She'd twisted everything, made me sound like a greedy old man hoarding wealth from his children, made herself sound like a victim of paternal selfishness. But I had her exact words, her public threat, her humiliating ultimatum. That's when something fundamental shifted inside me. The hurt and embarrassment crystallized into something harder, something colder, something more focused than anything I'd felt in years. They wanted to play games with public shame. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Attorney George Mason, real estate agent Rebecca Morrison, Wells Fargo branch manager, all the numbers I'd need for what came next. But I didn't call anyone that night. I sat in the darkness, listening to my family celebrate upstairs, and planned carefully. They thought they knew Henry Crawford, the selfless father who'd always put family first, the struggling retiree who needed their eventual support, the man who could be manipulated with guilt and public pressure. Tomorrow they'd meet someone different, someone who'd spent 25 years building something they couldn't imagine, someone who'd just been pushed too far, someone who held all the cards, even though they didn't know the game had started. Put yourself in my shoes for a second. Your own children treat you like a burden, demand you risk your financial security for them, then publicly humiliate you when you say no. What would you do? Let me know in the comments below. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Emma's voice echoing through that room. Don't dream of staying in this house anymore. By dawn, I had a plan. Not revenge, justice. Not retaliation, consequences. There's a difference, and I was about to demonstrate it At exactly 9 a.m., I called my attorney, George Mason's office. This is Henry Crawford. I need to see George immediately. Emergency consultation. Henry? What's wrong? How was your birthday party? Educational. George, I need to activate that moral character clause in my will. Can you meet with me this morning? Silence on the other end. Then, what happened exactly? Public humiliation. Recorded. 33 witnesses. My daughter ordered me out of my own house because I wouldn't co-sign their loan. Jesus, Henry. Yes, that definitely triggers the clause. How quickly do you want to act? How quickly can we revoke the current will and create new documents? If you have clear evidence of public disrespect, we could have new papers ready by this afternoon. But are you absolutely certain about this? I thought about 25 years of sacrifice, about being relegated to the basement, about being called selfish for protecting their inheritance. I've never been more certain of anything in my life, George. Come in at 11, and bring the recording and any witnesses' contact information. Next call. Rebecca Morrison, real estate agent. Morrison Properties, this is Rebecca. Rebecca, it's Henry Crawford. I need to put my house on the market immediately. How quickly can you list it? Henry, I thought Emma and Olivia were living there with their families. That situation is changing rapidly. Can you meet me at 1 p.m. for a market evaluation? Of course, but Henry, are you sure? This seems sudden. Rebecca, I'm more sure about this than anything I've done in decades. See you at 1. The house was still quiet upstairs. 4 adults sleeping off their celebration of my public humiliation. They had no idea their whole world was about to collapse. At 11 a.m. sharp, I walked into George Mason's law office, carrying the digital recorder and a typed transcript of Emma's entire speech. George listened to the recording twice, taking detailed notes. His expression grew darker with each replay. This is textbook public humiliation, he said finally. 33 witnesses, recorded evidence, clear character assassination. The moral character clause applies without any question. How long to prepare new documents? 2 hours, maybe 3. But Henry, I have to ask, are you completely certain about this? These are your daughters we're talking about. Family relationships can be repaired, but legal documents are harder to undo. I thought about Emma's performance last night. The careful planning, the deliberate cruelty, the calculated assassination of my character in front of everyone who mattered to me. They made their choice in front of 33 people, George. They recorded their decision for posterity. Now I'm making mine. What do you want the new will to specify? 90% of my estate to St. Christopher's Children's Charity. 10% split equally between any grandchildren held in trust until they reach 25. Nothing for Emma and Olivia. George's pen stopped moving. Henry, we're talking about significant assets here. Your house, retirement savings, business proceeds. We're talking about $2.6 million total, George. His eyebrows shot up. $2.6 million? Henry, I thought you were living modestly on Social Security and savings. I've been living modestly by choice. There's a difference. George stared at me for a long moment. They have no idea about this money? None whatsoever. They think their father is a broke retiree who needs their eventual support. Which makes their behavior even worse, but also strengthens our position legally. If they didn't know about the assets, they couldn't have been expecting to inherit them. No reasonable expectation equals no grounds for contesting the change. How ironclad is this? With the moral character clause, the recording, the witnesses, and their lack of knowledge about the assets? Completely ironclad. They triggered every condition you specified 5 years ago. I signed the new will an hour later. 25 years of planned generosity, erased by one night of public cruelty. From George's office, I drove directly to Wells Fargo downtown. The same branch where I'd opened my secret account 5 years earlier, the same teller windows where I'd quietly built a fortune my family never knew existed. Mr. Crawford, the branch manager smiled when I approached her desk. How can we help you today? I need to close my account here and transfer all funds to First National Bank. Today. She pulled up my file on her computer. The smile faded when she saw the balance. Sir, you're talking about $2.6 million. This is a substantial amount. Are you absolutely sure you want to? I'm completely sure. How long will the transfer take? With this amount, I'll need to make some calls and verify the receiving bank. We should have everything completed by end of business today. She made a note in my file. I show Emma Crawford and Olivia Crawford as emergency contacts on this account. Should I notify them of the transfer? Remove them immediately. They have no authority over this account, and no need to know about this transaction. Certainly, Mr. Crawford. Where should we send confirmation of the transfer? I gave her my new address, a P.O. box I'd opened that morning, and my new phone number, a line I'd activated an hour earlier. Will there be anyone else authorized on the new account at First National? Just me, Henry Crawford only. No joint holders, no beneficiaries, no emergency contacts. She processed the paperwork efficiently. 20 minutes later, I walked out of Wells Fargo with every dollar moved beyond my daughter's reach. $2.6 million in assets, completely removed from their future. The money they'd never known about was now permanently out of their lives. Just like they'd wanted me to be. But I wasn't finished. The real surprise was still coming. Rebecca Morrison would be arriving at the house in 2 hours for the market evaluation. By tonight, there would be a for sale sign in the front yard. By this time tomorrow, everything Emma and Olivia thought they knew about their future would be gone. I arrived home at 12:30 p.m. to find Emma in the kitchen making lunch. She looked up when I walked in, her expression still cold from the night before. "Sleep well in your basement?" she asked sarcastically. "Very well, thank you. You?" "Fine." She turned back to her sandwich preparation. "Tyler and I are driving to Florida this weekend, looking at those investment properties in person. I thought you needed a cosigner for the loan." She spun around, anger flashing in her eyes. "We'll figure it out. Some families actually support each other's dreams. And some families actually respect each other. Respect is earned, Dad. You earned exactly what you got last night." I nodded thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right, Emma. Respect is earned. Actions have consequences." She studied my face, probably trying to figure out why I seemed so calm after being publicly humiliated 12 hours earlier. "Olivia and I talked this morning," she continued. "We think it's time you started looking for your own place. A nice little apartment somewhere. It's time for you to move on." Actually, I agree completely. It is time to move on. That surprised her. She'd expected a fight, tears, begging. "Good. We'll give you 60 days to find something suitable." That's more than generous. Very generous. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca Morrison. "Running 5 minutes late. See you at 1:05. "I have an appointment," I told Emma. "We'll talk more later." She turned back to her lunch, dismissing me like an employee who'd been given his walking papers. If only she knew that in 30 minutes there would be a real estate agent in the living room taking photos for the MLS listing. If only she knew that by tonight, strangers would be calling to schedule house showings. If only she knew that the man she'd just evicted from him own place was about to demonstrate exactly what his own place meant in legal terms. The afternoon was going to be educational for everyone involved. Rebecca Morrison arrived at exactly 1:05 p.m. with her measuring tape, camera, and market analysis forms. I met her at the front door before anyone else could interfere. "Beautiful house, Henry," she said, looking around the living room where I'd been humiliated the night before. "Great bones, excellent location. The market's very strong right now for properties like this." She pulled out her measuring tape and started documenting room dimensions. 4 bedrooms, 3 full baths, finished basement, corner lot. I'd estimate between $830,000 and $850,000, depending on how quickly you want about to sell. How quickly could it sell? In this market? 2 weeks, maybe less if we price it right. Are you sure about this timing, Henry? This seems like a major life change. Rebecca, I'm more certain about this than anything I've done in 20 years. She nodded and continued taking photos. Professional shots of every room, every angle, every feature that would appeal to potential buyers. "I'll need you to sign listing papers. When do you want showings to start?" "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow? That's very fast. What about Emma and Olivia? Don't they need time to process this decision?" I looked around the living room where 33 people had watched my character assassination. They'll process it just fine. Rebecca finished her photos and measurements efficiently. I'll have the listing papers ready by 4 p.m. MLS listing goes live tonight if you sign them. The sign goes up first thing tomorrow morning. Perfect timing. After she left, I stood in the empty living room. 20 years of mortgage payments, 20 years of maintenance and repairs, 20 years of building equity, all mine, legally, completely, irrevocably mine. At 4 p.m., I was back in Rebecca's office signing the listing agreement. Standard commission, 30-day listing period, immediate availability for showings. The photos turned out beautiful, she said, showing me the professional images on her laptop. This house will show very well. When does the MLS listing go live? 6 p.m. tonight. By tomorrow morning, every agent in the county will know it's available. I expect calls to start immediately. I signed the final papers and handed them back. What's the next step? I'll coordinate all showings directly with you. The sign goes up at 8 a.m. tomorrow. First showing is already scheduled for 10 a.m. Cash buyer, pre-approved, very serious. A cash buyer on day one. Emma and Olivia were about to get an education in real estate market dynamics. One more question, Rebecca. What's the typical timeline from accepted offer to closing? With a cash buyer, 30 days max. Could be as little as 2 weeks if inspections go smoothly. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, this could all be over. I drove home to find Tyler's car missing from the driveway. Good. Fewer people to deal with when the sign went up tomorrow. Emma was in the living room when I walked in, scrolling through her phone. How was your afternoon? She asked without looking up. Productive. Very productive. And she didn't ask for details. Didn't show any interest in what her recently evicted father might be planning. By tomorrow morning, her curiosity would be permanently satisfied. The for sale sign would explain everything she needed to know. I spent that evening packing my personal belongings. 20 years of accumulated possessions, sorted into 3 categories. Essential items for my new apartment, sentimental items for storage, and everything else for donation. I was loading boxes when Olivia knocked on my basement door. Dad, what are you doing? Packing. I said 60 days, not 60 minutes. You don't have to leave immediately. I looked up from the box I was sealing. Plans changed, Olivia. What do you mean, plans changed? I mean, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. New apartment, new phone number, new life. She stepped into the room, noticing the systematic packing. Dad, we can work this out. Last night was just... Emotions were running high. We didn't mean some of the things we said. Yes, you did. Every word was planned and deliberate. That's not true. We were just frustrated about the loan situation. I pulled out the digital recorder. Would you like to hear it again? Your sister's exact words? Her face went pale. You recorded the party? I recorded Emma ordering me out of my own house, in front of 33 witnesses, all of it admissible in any legal proceeding. Legal proceeding? Dad, what are you talking about? I closed the last box and taped it shut. I'm talking about consequences, Olivia. Actions and consequences. We can fix this, she whispered. No, you can't. Some things can't be fixed. Some lines can't be uncrossed. Where are you going? Away from here, away from this, away from you. The next morning arrived gray and cold. I was loading my truck when the landscaping crew arrived to install Rebecca's for sale sign in the front yard. 2 men with a post hole digger and a professional real estate sign. Crawford property, for sale by Morrison Real Estate. Showings by appointment. I was still loading boxes when Emma burst out of the front door. Dad, what the hell is going on? I pointed to the sign being installed in the yard. Real estate transaction. No, she stared at the sign like it was written in hieroglyphics. No, you can't sell our house. It's not your house, Emma. It never was. We grew up here. This is our home. Your home? The home you kicked me out of yesterday? Tyler and Jonathan came running outside, followed by Olivia. All 4 of them stood on the front porch, staring at the sign like it might disappear if they looked hard enough. Dad, this is insane, Olivia said. You can't just sell the house because we had a family disagreement. Family disagreement? Is that what you're calling it now? Tyler stepped forward with his usual aggressive approach. Look, old man, I don't know what game you're playing. Tyler. My voice was quieter than his, but it stopped him mid-sentence. You demanded I risk this house as collateral for your loan. Emma, publicly humiliated me for refusing. And now you're calling this a game? I loaded another box into my truck. This isn't a game. This is a real estate transaction. You can't do this! Emma's voice was getting shrill. Watch me! The real estate agent arrived as I was loading my last box. Perfect timing for maximum impact. Mr. Crawford? Rebecca approached with her clipboard and lockbox. I have the first showing in an hour. Will the house be ready? Emma turned to Rebecca with desperation in her eyes. Excuse me, there's been a mistake. This house isn't for sale. Rebecca checked her paperwork. I have a signed listing agreement from Henry Crawford, the sole owner according to county records. The listing went live last night. But we live here, Olivia protested. I understand this is difficult, Rebecca said diplomatically, but Mr. Crawford has the legal right to sell his property. Jonathan, who'd been quiet until now, finally found his voice. How much time do we have? The first showing starts in 1 hour. If we get an acceptable offer today, closing could be as early as 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Emma's voice cracked. I closed my truck tailgate and faced them one final time. Emma, yesterday you told me not to dream of staying in this house. Today, I'm granting your wish. But I'm taking the house with me. We didn't mean... Olivia started. Yes, you did. 33 people heard you mean it. It's recorded for posterity. I handed Rebecca my house keys. Lock up when you're done with showings. Wait, Emma grabbed my arm. What about our stuff? Our furniture? You have until closing to remove it. I climbed into my truck and started the engine. Or don't. New owners might appreciate the furniture. I drove away without looking back. 3 days later, I was settling into my new apartment when someone knocked on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw Emma standing in the hallway, alone this time. She'd found my new address somehow, probably hired a private investigator, which she couldn't afford but would do anyway out of desperation. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. How did you find me? I hired someone. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Dad, we need to talk. No, we don't. The house is under contract. Someone made a cash offer for $845,000. Full price, no contingencies, 2-week closing. Excellent news, quick sale in a strong market. Dad, please, we have nowhere to go. I studied her face. Even now, even after losing everything, she still didn't understand what she'd done wrong. Emma, you ordered me out of my own house in front of 33 people. You called me selfish for protecting assets I planned to leave you anyway. You humiliated me publicly for refusing to risk everything on your investment scheme. And now you're surprised there are consequences? We were angry about the loan. You were cruel because I wouldn't enable your entitlement. There's a difference. Where are we supposed to live? I don't know and I don't care. That's not my problem anymore. We're your daughters. Yesterday you were my daughters. Today you're adults who need to face the consequences of their choices. The bank denied our loan application without your co-signature. Tyler lost his job. Jonathan's real estate license is under review. We're losing everything. You lost everything the moment you chose public humiliation over private conversation. You lost everything when you decided cruelty was more effective than honesty. Dad, please. Emma, for 25 years I put you first. I sacrificed everything for your happiness and security, and you repaid that sacrifice with calculated public cruelty. We're done. I closed the door and locked it. She pounded on it for 5 minutes before finally leaving. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. A week later, my attorney called with an update I'd been expecting. Henry, your daughters hired a lawyer. They're attempting to contest the will change and block the house sale. On what grounds? Mental incompetence, undue influence, and improper asset concealment. Standard desperate measures when beneficiaries realize what they've lost. What's their lawyer telling them? That they have no case whatsoever. The moral character clause was signed 5 years ago, long before any dispute. The house sale is completely legal. You're the sole owner, and the recorded conversation proves mental competence beyond any doubt. What about the money they didn't know about? That actually helps our position. If they weren't aware of the $2.6 million, they couldn't have had reasonable expectations of inheriting it. No expectations means no grounds for contest. How much are they spending on legal fees? From what I understand, their retainer was $25,000, with additional costs accruing daily. They're funding this lawsuit with credit cards and personal loans. $25,000 they didn't have, chasing money they'd never known existed. George, are we bulletproof on this? Completely. You have recordings, witnesses, documentation, and a pre-existing legal clause that they triggered perfectly. They have hurt feelings and expensive lawyers who are taking their money while knowing they can't win. After I hung up, I walked through my peaceful apartment. No tension, no walking on eggshells, no whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Just quiet. The house closing was scheduled for next Friday. The charity had already been notified about the $2.3 million donation. My grandchildren's trust funds were being established, with the remaining $300,000. Emma and Olivia would get exactly what they'd asked for: a life without their selfish father interfering in their financial decisions. Sometimes you get exactly what you ask for. Sometimes that's the cruelest gift of all, but it's also the most educational. 6 weeks after the house sold, I received a letter at my P.O. box. The return address was Tyler's parents' home. Apparently that's where Emma and Tyler were living now. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. "Dad," it began in Emma's handwriting, "I know you probably won't read this, but I have to try. Tyler and I are living in his parents' basement. The rent is $800 a month, which doesn't sound like much until you realize Tyler's been unemployed for 2 months. Olivia and Jonathan found a one-bedroom apartment across town. They're working minimum wage jobs and can barely afford groceries." Then she went on to describe their financial struggles, their job searches, their daily reality of living paycheck to paycheck. All consequences of the chain reaction that started with a birthday party humiliation. "We all lost our jobs because we couldn't focus on work after everything happened. We kept thinking about the house, about you, about how badly we messed up. The legal fees cost us $30,000 before our lawyer finally told us to stop wasting money on a case we couldn't win. $30,000 on legal fees. Money they'd borrowed against credit cards to fund a lawsuit they had no chance of winning. We know you donated most of your money to charity. We saw the announcement in the newspaper. St. Christopher's Children's Home received their largest single donation ever, $2.3 million from an anonymous benefactor. We know it was you." The letter continued for 2 more pages: apologies, explanations, justifications. But mostly it was a catalog of consequences. A detailed account of how quickly a comfortable life could collapse when the financial foundation was removed. I read it twice, then put it back in the envelope. Some lessons come too expensive to learn, but they're also too important not to teach. A month later, another letter arrived, this time from Olivia. "Dad, I know Emma already wrote to you, but I wanted you to hear from me directly. Jonathan lost his real estate license last week. Something about falsifying client documents to try to generate quick commissions. He's working construction now when he can find work." The letter detailed their downward spiral with clinical precision. Job losses, apartment hunting, government assistance applications. The complete reversal of fortune that happens when entitled people suddenly have to provide for themselves. We found out about the $2.6 million from the probate attorney. All those years we thought you were struggling financially, you were actually wealthy. All those years we thought we'd have to take care of you eventually, you were planning to take care of us forever. Finally, recognition of what they'd lost. The worst part isn't the money, though. It's knowing that you planned to leave everything to us, and we destroyed that gift with our selfishness and pride. We threw away our entire inheritance for a $1.3 million loan we didn't even get. We drive by the old house sometimes. The new owners painted it blue and planted a rose garden in front. It looks happy. It looks like a home where people appreciate what they have. The letter ended with something resembling genuine remorse. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything except the chance to say I finally understand what we lost. Not the house, not the inheritance. We lost the best father anyone could ask for, and that loss is worth more than any amount of money. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer next to Emma's letter and the digital recorder. Recognition was the first step toward wisdom, but recognition without the ability to make amends was just expensive education. 10 years have passed since that birthday party. I'm 75 now, living quietly in my small apartment, volunteering at St. Christopher's Children's Charity 3 days a week. The donation I made transformed that place. New playground equipment, updated classrooms, expanded programs, college scholarships for aging out foster kids. One night of public humiliation became a lifetime of opportunities for children who'd been abandoned by their families. Sometimes irony delivers justice more effectively than revenge ever could. I received Christmas cards from my daughters for the first 3 years after the house sale. I returned them all unopened. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt, not because of inability, but because of choice. I chose self-respect over family dysfunction. I chose boundaries over enabling. I chose peace over manipulation. My grandchildren will receive their trust funds when they turn 25. The accounts have grown substantially over the past decade. They'll get money, but they'll also get a letter explaining why their parents received nothing. Education about consequences. Lessons about respect and entitlement, and the difference between love and enabling. Maybe they'll learn what their parents couldn't. I keep the digital recorder on my desk next to a framed copy of my will. 2 pieces of paper that changed everything. Physical reminders that actions have consequences, that respect must be earned, that love without boundaries isn't love at all. I sleep well at night now. No tension, no walking on eggshells, no wondering when the next demand or manipulation will come. Just peace. For the first time in 25 years, I'm living for myself instead of sacrificing for people who took those sacrifices for granted. Some people call that selfish. I call it self-preservation. If you enjoyed this story of family boundaries and consequences, you'll love my other videos about standing up for yourself. Subscribe and hit that notification bell for more real-life stories about taking back control. What's the most disrespectful thing a family member has ever done to you? Share your story below. You might inspire my next video. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them experience the full consequences of their choices. Sometimes that's the only way they learn.